Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Try-F podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. And today, I was reading a random old book because I am a nerd. And I came across a story that I found very interesting. It's called The New Berwick. Let me read this because I can never say the word right. The North Berwick Witches, or the North Berwick Witch Trials. Now, this took place in 1590 to 1592. There were more than 70 people accused of being witches in East Lothian, with their activities centering on the town of North Berwick. Now, the guy who basically oversaw these trials was King James, the same guy who oversaw the putting together the King James Bible. So I was reading his stuff on demonology, and I came across this. It was like an addition to the end of that book. So let me see if I can pull the book up really quick. Hang on here. And let me switch this. Yeah, here we go. So this is the actual, like, I don't have the picture of the actual book cover, but yeah, this is from the Scottish newspaper that, you know, talked about it. So, the manifold truths which are spread abroad concerning the detestable actions and apprehensions of those witches whereof this history following truly treats, has caused me to publish the same in print, and the rather, for that a number of written copies are lately dispersed thereof, containing that the said witches were first discovered by means of a poor peddler traveling to the town of Tranent, and that by a wonderful manner he was in a moment conveyed at midnight from Scotland to Bordeaux in France, being places of no small distance between, in a merchant's cellar there, and after being sent from Bordeaux into Scotland by certain Scottish merchants to the King's Majesty, that he discovered those witches, who was the cause of their apprehension. So, and just for some interesting historical stuff, here are some pictures from that paper. So this is the first column, picture of the first column. No, I'm wrong. This is one of the pictures from that column. Yeah, this is the first column. The manifold.
The manifold.
Yeah. So let me switch to that really quick because for some reason, hang on a minute, technical difficulties.
Well, that's exactly what you just read a minute ago.
Uh-huh. Yep, that's what I just read a minute ago. So, now what are you doing? Excuse me. Firefox is being frustrated. There we go. All right, so yeah, this is the picture of what we just read. And that's from the original paper. And here are some of the wood cuttings. Well, that's another piece of the paper. There's a wood cutting from that newspaper article. Here's where I got those pictures.
There were demons in those cuttings. Did you see those?
Yeah, because they're describing the satanic ritual. Yeah. And I found this ritual to be absolutely bizarre. What I pulled up is going to be a broad history, but I just found it to be... Basically, I don't think these were witches at all. I think this was a drunken joke gone horribly wrong. When you start reading between the lines a little bit.
It does happen.
Yeah, because at one point the witches decide that they're going to kill King James. I'm sure this was all done in a drunken stupor. So they get up, they go to this church, and they're having this midnight mass thing, and the devil's behind the pulpit. And the devil, at some point in the night, is like, "You guys are late. I'm mad at you. Kiss my butt." And the witches proceed to kiss his butt. And what's hilarious is they actually drew a picture of them kissing his butt. That is from the time. And all the witches lined up to kiss the devil's butt. And after that absurdity...
Must be real.
Oh yeah, it must have happened. So after that absurdity... They got mad at the devil because the devil forgot the voodoo doll they were going to use to kill King James. So the witches all kiss this guy's butt, and then the guy forgets the voodoo doll. I'm like, this is some dude dressed in a suit, and he forgot all his stuff. So I just thought it was a funny thing, but it blew into this big deal. And I thought before we began, providentially, actually, as I was doing research to trying to decide a quick way to tell this story, It turns out Ryan Reeves, the guy who did the History of Santa Claus documentary, also did a documentary on this topic, like not even like 5 months ago or something. Let me check.
Nice.
Let me check. Yeah, like 4 months ago. So I thought we would watch Ryan Reeves's video on the topic after we listened to some of the testimony from the trial. So here we go.
Confession of Agnes Sampson. Catalogue reference SP 52/47 F14I. In the course of a witchcraft trial, the accused could give a confession, sometimes given freely, sometimes forced, which would be used as evidence against them. Agnes Sampson was burned for witchcraft, and this source contains parts of her confession. 29 January 1590. Page 1. From top into line 8 of main text. Certain notes of Agnes Sampson, her confession, 27 January 1590, whereupon she was convicted by an assize and burned in Edinburgh 28 day for a witch. Imprimis, the said Agnes confesses that after the death of her husband, the devil appeared unto her in the night, till she was, and pensive for the sustentation of her and her bairns, bidding her to be of good cheer and leave.
So just so you know, when he pauses, that means they can't read the word. Just for clarity.
R word, probably.
Yeah. Or just sloppily written or whatever.
For her children, promising that if she would serve him, she nor they should lack nothing. And being motivated with her poverty and his fair promises of riches and revenge of her enemies, took him for her master and renounced Christ. Page 2, third paragraph. Item. She confesses that upon a complaint of a woman of the frowardness of her father-in-law and her earnest desire to be quit of him, she made a picture of wax and raised a spirit at a waterside beside a briar bush, desiring her to enchant it to serve for his destruction, and send it to the said woman to be put under his bed sheet or bed head. Page 4, second paragraph. Item. She confesses that she raised the devil by her evocations to ask if a gentlewoman should live or die. He appeared to her in likeness of a black dog before supper, she being alone. But after supper, having the gentlewoman's 3 daughters with her, of whom one would have drowned herself in the well out of the which the dog came, and whither he went, and was hardly stayed through the violent pulling and holding of her sisters, and the said Agnes Sampson, the said gentlewoman was made, a quarter of an hour thereafter.
What?
All right, those are some segments of it. So she's
What did
basically...
that last part mean? The dog tried to get her out of the well and she was made?
I don't know. Let's listen to that again.
And whither he went, and was hardly stayed through the violent pulling and holding of her sisters, and the said Agnes Sampson, the said gentlewoman was made, a quarter of an hour thereafter.
Made a what? Made a witch? That's obviously nomenclature we don't know about, or we don't understand. So, but I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting to note that this is somebody like transcribing their testimony after the fact, which makes it very suspect. But this is what was written down at the time. So I just thought that was an interesting little historical tidbit.
Nice.
So
that's from the 1500s?
Mm-hmm. That is from 1590.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, so here is Ryan Reeves. Cannot recommend his channel enough. Documentary for this particular event. And here we go.
Okay, so King James, That King James. That King James. The one from the Bible. Once got so spooked out by witches that he eventually researched and wrote a book on demonology. Meaning James, this great king of England and Scotland, the name tied to the Bible and the throne, is also the only Christian king in history to write a book on demons. And yes, you heard that right, demonology. It's bizarre, it's unexpected, and it's exactly why we're diving in. Because this isn't just a quirky footnote in history. It's a shadowy chapter of the Reformation, a grim slice of the 16th century, and a really haunting moment for Scotland itself. And at the heart of it stands King James. But back then, he was still King James VI of Scotland. But let's uncover what drove a king to write such a work, and how it fueled one of Scotland's darkest obsessions.
After we watch an ad with a pink bear in it.
There's 8 billion people in the world.
It's a skinwalker.
Yeah, it's a skinwalker, right? Something went wrong in the ceremony, though.
To unravel the witch trials
Not
that
as
gripped
bad as
Scotland in the
Big
1590s, we must begin with the man who stood at the epicenter, King James VI of Scotland. Born June 19, 1566, in Edinburgh Castle, James entered a world of chaos. His mother, Mary, Queen of Scots, was forced to abdicate just a year later in 1567, fleeing to England and leaving the infant James as king under a series of regents. His childhood was anything but stable, in other words, marked by a kidnapping at Stirling Castle in 1570, the assassination of his regent, the Earl of Moray, that same year, and the brutal murder of another regent, the Earl of Lennox, in 1571. Political intrigue swirled around James like the mists over the Highlands. Perhaps because of this, James grew up a wary, scholarly, and a kind of bookish man who was also very protective, in fact, fiercely protective, of his crown. You might say James' platform, to use a modern political idea, was three things: royal authority, Protestantism, and the eradication of any element in Scotland that threatened any of these two issues. In this case, it was witches. And James was going to destroy them. So by 1590, now in his mid-20s, King James of Scotland had emerged as a ruler of striking intellect. Fluent in Latin, he was a poet and a devout Protestant, steeped in the teachings of John Knox's Reformation. He was obsessed, in particular, with the doctrine of the divine right of kings, a belief he later articulated in the 1598 treatise, The True Laws of Free Monarchies.
And a doctrine the Americans kicked out of the Enlightenment. America, heck yeah.
Why would they do that?
Because the doctrine of divine monarchy is stupid.
Why is that?
Because it means basically the king can do no wrong.
It means all governments are put in place by God, like Paul says.
No. It means that the king is literally the direct servant of the Almighty. And so it's like his words are on par with the Pope. It's that kind of like religious connotation with the monarch. So, yeah, we got rid of that. Sort of. Technically, the Magna Carta got rid of that, but, you know, details.
James is really one of the strongest to say that kings on this earth have no checks and balances. They can't be held accountable in this life, only in the life to come. God will get them in the end. That was always the idea. But you can't censure or remove a king from office. That's James' position. Also, because he's king, everything is going to be Protestant. Therefore, if you are a Catholic, or in this case, if you are part of the cabal of witches that are trying to destroy Scotland, well, James is going to come down with the force of the entire kingdom. The story begins with the betrothal of James and Anne of Denmark, a powerful connection to another Protestant nation, an important alliance in the percolating anger of what would soon become the wars of religion. For now, James was simply a young king waiting for his bride to arrive. Only she didn't. She was late. And then word came. Anne had boarded a ship for Scotland, and not once, but several times, the wind blew them off course and forced them back. Not to be a man short on chivalry, James decided he was going to mount an effort to go and fetch his new love. And he set sail in 1589 from the city of Leith. His destination was Elsinore Castle. Yes, that Elsinore Castle from Hamlet, where Anne awaited for her prince. The journey, though, was anything but smooth. Storms battered the fleet.
What?
Oh, Hamlet.
Hamlet. Yeah.
At the Orkney Islands.
You gonna say something again, Trevor?
No, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Continue.
Yeah.
Claiming James's life. And when he finally returned back to Scotland on May 1st, 1590, with Anne finally in tow, docking in that same city of Leith, he was a changed man, convinced that dark forces were conspiring against his kingdom of Scotland and the Scottish people. You see, this is a bit of a mutation, you might say, of a previous problem. Denmark had already been gripped by witch hunts for some time, influenced by others in Europe and the growing panic over diabolical conspiracies. James was impressionable, and he was surrounded now by Dutch scholars who began to argue that witchcraft was likely to blame for what was going on with Anne's disaster of a voyage. This wasn't just about the weather, they argued. It was about the survival of God's anointed king. And Scotland was no stranger to the fear of witches either. In fact, just 3 years prior to his birth in 1563, the Scottish Parliament passed the Witchcraft Act, a harsh law that declared witchcraft and even consulting with witches punishable by death. The ink had barely dried on this document when James even came into the world, but for decades, that law simmered more quietly. Large-scale witch hunts were rare. The act was more of a shadow we see in the statute books from time to time than a fire in the streets. There really is not the mobs of people that are chasing down witches everywhere. That is.
Well, let's ask a question. Let's ask the question. Were there really witches? Or were the people back then just stupid? Or is the answer somewhere is in between?
Probably somewhere in between.
I would think so.
I would think so. Witch is an arbitrary term that you can call whoever stands against you.
Mm-hmm. C.S. Lewis made a good point, though. It's like in terms of like, not that he was affirming the existence of witches, but he did make the point that, you know, people say that the Christian religion has in the past acted inconsistent with its moral decrees. But he's like, no, if you believe a woman actually could, or some dude, whoever, actually could make a deal with the devil and wipe out a whole town, you'd set that person on fire. So, you know, it's not, the thing is not that we've evolved as a people, it's that we no longer believe in witches. That's the distinction. So, the question is, what actually would have prompted them to believe in witches? What's the most likely explanation for people to actually start saying that witches exist in the government? Not, you know, not like the vampire thing where some priest is like, they made me drive a stake through that thing's heart, otherwise they're going to kill me. Please don't, you know, don't expel me from the church. I didn't have a choice. Not like that, but like the government comes in and goes, witches are a thing and we got to stop these guys. What would really cause that?
What would really cause that?
Yeah. Like, could it be plague? Maybe they just didn't know germ theory. They always assumed the plagues were witches. Maybe the witches are real. Maybe there was something else.
The UFO thing that we're doing. I mean, it's a distraction against, you know, a big policy change that's going to take away money from the people or something.
So you think they were scaring the populace to kind of maintain control of the public?
Yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that, Cody.
I mean,
that's
like
a
that
plausible
picture you got pulled
idea.
up with the Simpsons, you get everybody teamed up against them.
So it was a psyop.
Like they feel like they're doing something good.
That's not a bad theory. That's not a bad theory at all. I like that. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
But to answer the question is whether or not the witches are real. I've literally met people that dress the part, act the part, tattoos on their fingers, like.
Of course, when I say real, I mean, you know,
I don't know,
actually summoning demons and not just dancing naked under the moonlight because they're hedonists.
Right.
So okay, like.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
So
I mean, I think you can impart demons, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I just don't know how effective all that is. It's like, maybe effective's the better word as opposed to real. Are witches actually effective, or are they just goobers, you know, worshiping sticks or whatever? So, all All right. But no, I like that psyop theory. That actually makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So, what do you think, Trevor?
I think if witches weren't real, why would all these other countries like Africa and Haiti and stuff have witch doctors?
Mm-hmm.
I've got 5 minutes left on my laptop battery.
Oh, crud.
Apparently, it's not charging.
Uh-oh. Is it plugged in?
That's
I
not
know that
good.
sounds like a snarky question, but I'm trying not to be snarky.
Thought I plugged it in. Let me go check.
All
It
right.
ain't got no gas in it.
Well, Trevor, push back a little bit then. You don't think it's a psyop. You think it's
Oh no, it's definitely a psyop, but they're using. It's the same thing they've been doing since day one. Lucifer was the original witch. Okay, witches aren't real. You know, they say there's. It's the saying Lucifer's greatest thing was to get people to believe that he's not real. So he's just replaying it. Okay, well, witches are not real.
So you think, okay, I'm having a hard time following you. Let me see if I understand. You think the idea of this whole thing being a psyop is indicative of the devil trying to deceive people into thinking he's not real?
Oh yeah,
So you think they are real?
very real.
Okay. And you think that they were really wiping out towns back then? Or do you think they were wiping people out and that was scaring people enough?
I think it's very plausible. Yes.
We'll come back to that. Cody, is your computer okay?
Yeah, you were right. You should be an IT guy.
From India. That was racist.
Come on, again.
Always check the gas.
Oh, buddy.
Well, you know they would have asked first in that accent, you know. Did you plug it in? And you're like, oh, did I plug it in? Yes, No, I didn't plug it in. Thank you.
Come on, again.
Racist. Okay.
I fluff your pillow.
Okay, so Trevor had an interesting theory, Cody, and I'll push on it. See what you have to say. So he's thinking that the government didn't believe it. They used it as a psyop, and that's part of the devil's scheme to make people think the witches aren't real. But the witches are real. So there was a problem that people were talking about. The government didn't believe there was a problem, but they still saw an opportunity. So what they did is they made these witch acts as kind of a psyop, even though they didn't believe it, and that somehow was like meant to convince people that the witches aren't real. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like now that the government said
the devil ever pulled was to convince you that he didn't exist.
yeah, so he's trying to convince you that he doesn't exist. So he makes the government give witches the stamp of approval. And it's just like us with the aliens. It's like now that Uncle Sam says they're aliens, I don't believe there's aliens. I think Uncle Sam's full of crap. The devil won. So is it something like that, you think?
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe? I don't know, Trevor. What do you think?
I just try to not believe anything.
You're just trying to...
That's kind of my...
Oh.
Only the Father is good, right?
Right.
I like the idea that it's a psyop. That makes a lot of sense. I'm just speculating. But
Here's
what if...
another question.
Go for it.
Assuming that witches are a thing and they're real, how do you tell what's a good witch and a bad witch?
I would argue there's no distinction. If you're summoning demons, that would mean you're
You
doing
just
something
said it.
bad.
Only the Father is good.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, well, can we tighten up our wording here to get to the question? So, like, marginally good witches versus marginally bad witches.
We're not putting butter in it.
We're not putting butter
It's
in.
all demon worship.
Yeah,
It's all demon worship.
I agree. I think it's all demon worship. I don't think there's nature spirits or whatever. I'll put good witches in a book if it's expedient, but I don't actually think they exist. So,
I do.
well, I mean, good witches. Do you think good witches exist?
I believe
Marginally
there are-
good.
I believe there are people out there that try to do the right thing by being a good witch. Like they ask God to, like they pray over their tarot cards and ask God to intervene.
That's retarded.
There are people that do that. I'll have to see if I can find you a video. There's people that do that.
So deceived people with good intentions.
Yeah.
To argue that point, I guess, like Solomon, but now, because see, Solomon, the whole story is he turned his back on God because he thought he could do it himself,
Yeah, he turned his back. Well, he
and that's how he
followed
figured out all
it all. Yeah.
what demons like and don't like.
Assuming that I don't even know if that book was actually by Solomon, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but according to the lore, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a
Yeah, no, there's no good end to that, to demon worship.
yeah. I don't think it's gonna have a happy ending either way. So, but it's there. I had a thought. Let's see. So it had something to do with the psyop thing. What if it was like they didn't have germ theory, right? So there's plagues. There's people dying en masse. I mean, of course, this would be like unique to Denmark, but that's the problem, though, too. Like, this is a specific incident in Scotland. This wasn't like a mass persecution of witches. You know what I mean? So I do think we have to bear that in mind. This was a reaction to a specific event, the storm. Now, it makes me wonder what was going on in Denmark, because if Denmark was like a mass extinction effort of witches or whatever, or a mass hunt of witches, then what might have happened was King James goes over to Denmark, the girl puts it in his head, and then he sees these witches and is reacting because of stuff his girlfriend told him. You know what I mean? So it's like he's reacting to, stuff that she believes. She's got him convinced. So
That does happen.
Mm-hmm. So it might be that. But it might also be like if it was a mass extermination effort, they could have just been looking for something to blame because of the plagues. Because unlike with the vampire thing, where you've got like these weird external anomalies, like physical anomalies that people pretend didn't happen.
You're saying the plagues were intentional?
I don't know if they were intentional or not. I think I think the plagues were the result of those people being filthy, to be just blunt. Like that Europe at that time, like they did not follow the Levitical law, let's say, or just bathe on a daily basis. Like it was really gross time to be alive. So
Like Monty Python?
yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, it was quite a bit like that. So
Bring out your dead.
yeah. And that's horrible, but yeah, that's what it was like, because they didn't. You just have so many.
It says Monty Python.
Yeah, it says Monty Python, true. But you had so many. You had your populations growing. You're learning how to farm, and like really understanding it. Society's finally starting to cohere back together after the fall of the Roman Empire, which took forever. You've got basically from my understanding, the worst of the Muslim conquests are over at this point.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. And so society's starting to come back together. And so you're going to have a population explosion. And if everybody's dirty during a population explosion, a lot of people are going to die, but people don't understand germ theory, right? So the witch thing, the germ theory thing and blaming the plagues on the witches would actually make sense. It doesn't make sense the vampire thing, though, because you have a lot of weird anomalies that you can't, put together. But with the witch thing, it does.
The filth thing is ultimately the fault of the city because not having enough infrastructure to maintain that amount of people.
Right.
Like when you don't have modern plumbing and you have that many people packed into a spot, like you you know about the dome in Katrina.
Oh, I haven't heard this story. No, go on. I know what
Katrina.
No, yeah, I don't know about that.
Okay,
story.
so
Go on.
they opened up the Superdome where they play football for people to
right
rest in. Right, it became a shithole, like a literal shithole within a week.
Yeah,
like because you have to have plumbing.
Yeah.
Period. You have to get rid of poop, or you're gonna get sick.
Yeah.
Like period. And it's the fault of the city. So them having a scapegoat to say, hey. There's probably these witches making you sick. It's not because we don't have plumbing.
Yeah, I think that's got some plausibility. Sure, for sure. That's kind of what I suspect. I mean, I wouldn't say that with the vampires though, because you got that weird physical stuff. I don't know what was going on with that, but with the witches,
Yeah.
you know, you've got this official decree. It's like, hey, we got to ban those witches, man. They're awfully bad. Well, that keeps the people from getting mad about the gutters being full of poop.
Yeah.
So that might have been what was going on. It's a theory. I'd have to do more research to kind of check and see if the population was really blowing up around that time and if they were just
I wonder how
hunting
they've
witches
kept
at
India
random.
from revolting this whole time.
I don't know.
You know,
Yeah.
they must just vaccinate the crap out of them.
Bill Gates is banned for doing those vaccinations. So I don't know. Maybe that's I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
But I had a whole other thought.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. Come again.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. The Black Plague came back for a while in like Africa for a brief spat, and they figured out that they figured out that there was a group of people messing around with corpses. That was what was doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but these
Like-
people wouldn't know anything about germ theory, so that's probably may have been the motivation of it.
Yeah.
But Trevor, what are your theories?
I don't have theories.
You just know.
I just don't know.
Based.
There we go. There we go. All right, based. Anyway, back to Ryan Reeves.
Is until King James' reign. That changed everything. James' harrowing voyage to Denmark in 1589, paired with a fragile sense of his own security forged by a turbulent childhood, became the spark. When he stepped back onto Scottish soil in 1590 with his new queen, Anne of Denmark, by his side.
See, this is
But-
he's conjecturing like we are though, and he's kind of selling this fact. I don't think it was his damaged childhood. I think it was the woman. I'll just say that.
And that does not look like a woman.
No, his wife was like, "Hey, we burn witches. Maybe that's what happened." So, and then he's like, "Oh, you must be right. Let me look for some witches."
It's a sweet necklace, though.
That is if you're a poodle.
It's a turtleneck. That's what
Are
I-
you talking
hey,
about
it's
this?
It's legit. It's a legit necklace. Neck lace.
You're right.
Aha.
So
So that's Lacey?
Looks like it.
it looks uncomfortable.
It could be a muskrat.
I don't know why anybody would wear something like that.
I think he's just trying to be a peacock.
Of course, I don't know why people wear bell-bottom jeans either, but that's just me.
Whispers were already spreading. A sinister conspiracy was afoot, they said. Witches had woven dark spells to drown the king and his bride beneath the furious waves of the North Sea. But for James, this wasn't just rumor. It was personal.
You're just trying to hurt
Then what about the moment when you actually realize that you're not here by accident?
Spread the word,
That's
spread the
Tim Tebow.
gospel.
What?
That was Tim Tebow.
That was Tim Tebow. You are
He
correct,
played
sir.
the footballs.
He did. He did.
My mama said.
What? I don't get that reference. What? Oh, Waterboy. Waterboy.
Waterboy.
Okay.
Mama said. Mama said.
Okay. Okay. There was a lag there. Speak a little louder next time. So.
Sorry.
20 miles east of Edinburgh, along the Firth of Forth, lies a coastal town named North Berwick. And yes, that is going to be the last time I pronounce this in the Scottish way. My Scottish friends can choose to be mad at me. That's fine. I'm going to pronounce it like myself, which is my muddled accent.
Well, I don't have Scottish friends, so I've been calling it Berwick. That's embarrassing.
Berwick.
Berwick.
Just mumble a little bit.
Berwick.
Berwick.
Yeah, I
Just
read your comments.
lazier.
What?
Just say it lazier.
Just say it lazier. Okay. Just trying
Stop
too hard.
enunciating so much. Be a Scot. Only a threat Scotsman.
There you go.
But North Berwick is a small fishing town, with the quaint stone cottages that are buffeted by the winds coming in from the harbor. It's an unlikely place for a national crisis. Yet, in November 1590, it became ground zero. The trouble began with a young servant girl named Gillis Duncan. Now, Gillis lived a quiet life in the nearby village of Trenant, and Gillis was employed by a really kind of nasty piece of work by the name of David Seaton. And he was the deputy bailiff of the little village. And he was a staunch Calvinist. He wasn't a pastor. He wasn't a theologian. He was simply one of these folks who was always on the lookout for the boogeyman. And he was, we must say, thoroughly obsessed with Gillis. In fact, a lot of historians stop short of this. I won't. I think he's a creep. I think what he's doing towards her is essentially stalking her and using some sort of inappropriate fascination with Gillis to enact his sort of twistedness. You see, Gillis was a girl of humble origins and humble means, probably no older than 16. And she had a reputation of slipping out under the cover of night. Heaven forbid 16-year-olds act like themselves. Whispers followed, and tales of her uncanny knack for healing the sick, easing fevers with herbs, and gathering things from around the surrounding woods to help, started to mount a case, at least in Seaton's mind, that he was dealing with a witch. Again, he was obsessed with her. He felt it was his duty to know where she was at all times, where she was going off to at night, and he, as deputy bailiff, had the power and the zeal to figure this out himself. Whatever she was up to, Seaton knew it was sinister. So around mid-November in 1590, he decided to take matters into his own hands. In a dank cellar, cold, stone-walled beneath his own home, Seaton subjected Gillis to the thumbscrews, a brutal device of iron that clamps down on her fingers, crushing bone and sinew with each twist. He also used the witch's bridle, which is this iron muzzle that also pierces the mouth. Under this torment, Gillis broke and confessed to all sorts of things. Now, a quick note on torture, not the thing I thought I would be talking about, but here we are. In no circumstances ever is it the case that torture ever reveals some hidden truth. I know we see that all the time in movies and shows. That doesn't happen in real life. It doesn't happen in history. If you don't believe me, just see interviews with CIA operatives. And they reveal this over and over. If you torture people, you tend, usually, to break their mind entirely, and then the information you get is entirely worthless. Torture does nothing. So all that's
It's
happening...
not exactly true. They just babble and like say random things to get you to leave them alone. So
They'll say anything
Yeah.
just to get the pain to stop.
So, like, one of the things that defense attorneys look for when they're making their case to defend a defendant, if the prosecutor or the detective is feeding information. So if you put somebody in an interrogation room for like 12 hours, now this isn't as extreme a case, but if you put somebody in an interrogation room for 8 to 12 hours and you start going, "We think you did this, right?" And then you go, "Uh-huh," that counts as a confession. Yeah. But really, they're spoon-feeding you the tale. They set the narrative themselves. And so anything...
Making a murderer.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, it's making a murder. It's what happened to Making a Murderer. Of course, the kid was slow, too, so they knew they could get away with that. So, yeah, this is kind of a thing that they do. So, it's, yeah, you put somebody's hands in a thumbscrew or whatever, then, yeah, their testimony is worthless at that point. So...
to Gillis at this point, or to any of the other witches that are to be tortured to have a confession, is nothing more than that, a false confession. But she confessed, coerced and trembling, spilling forth all of this information that she did not do. Gillis admitted to being a witch, claimed that she had danced with the devil himself. Seaton, though, was not happy with that answer. He pressed harder, and Gillis, with Seaton's promptings, we might add, started to imply that others in the area were part of this coven of witches. She mentioned someone by the name of Agnes Sampson, a midwife from Haddington, and John Fian, who was a schoolmaster from another village, and a web of...
So Agnes Sampson is the girl that we listened to a little bit earlier. And so all that random stuff she said was also said under torture. So
who was the first? Back it up like 5 seconds.
Gillis was the first girl. Let's see. Torture Gillis.
Who's the second one?
Agnes is the next girl.
What is she? What was her occupation? Did it say?
I don't think it's said much about her yet. It's just a random girl the girl named.
Okay.
So
You got a healer and a teacher so far.
possibly.
Says the guy was a teacher.
Oh, Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
He said it was a
No,
healer and a teacher.
the third guy on there.
Oh, yes.
John Fian-
John
John
Fion.
Finan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Said he was a teacher.
Ah, yeah, so you got a healer and a teacher. So that would have been maybe people she was going to school with, perhaps?
No, it's people the government doesn't want changing their narrative.
Oh, interesting. Very,
Good witches.
Very interesting.
Others across East Lothian. Her words, wrung from agony, set off a chain reaction that would blaze through Scotland like wildfire, pulling King James himself into the fray and marking North Berwick as the epicenter of a growing storm of witches.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks.
These are a lot of ads.
I start by brain dumping everything I need to get
Clickbait
done
ad.
in a
Okay, so now in the 1590s, King James is getting involved. In fact, he's very much involved in almost every witch trial that he can get his hands on. During one chilling session in Holyrood, within the Privy Chamber, Agnes Sampson, the person whose name was given out before by Gillis, was facing the king herself. Worn down by torture, her tongue still scarred from the witch's bridle, she whispered the words that stopped James cold. You see, James had not let up on the fact that he felt that someone had tried to assassinate him and his queen, Anne. And here, under torture, James alleges that Agnes leaned in and recounted a private exchange that he had with Anne on their wedding night back in 1589 in Denmark. It was a tender moment James felt had been whispered away from prying ears. Now, this story, we have no idea what to make of it. James says this. You have two choices. Either James is lying, and he's using the story to further push his justification of torture and execution, or somehow someone told Agnes what to say. I guess the third option could be she is a witch and she has preternatural knowledge of this story. I'm just not going with that one. But for James, when Agnes said this,
Isn't it? He's probably right, but isn't it interesting that everybody's instantly like, no, I'm not going there?
Yeah.
Probably right. I just always find it really interesting that people are like, no. It's like, guys, we don't know what in the world's out there. It could be, but and he's probably right. It's probably the guy being pervy, but why would you assume that with no evidence? Because we're not given any information that would imply the guy's pervy, except that he's mad that the girl's sneaking out at night. We're not given any other information to that. But you're willing to infer the guy's pervy, but you're not willing to infer that maybe the woman had preternatural knowledge. I mean, just why? Why do we lean so far one way and not the other? Just quote Tucker Carlson, I'm just asking questions. So.
no one else could have known it.
Do you like that?
And for James, that was no trick.
What? Do you like that?
Said, do you like that?
Do I like that? I guess.
I thought that was so funny.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh, he made me mad during that interview. Anyway. Oh, just blood shooting out of my eyes.
It was the proof that he needed of the diabolical power within Scotland. Convinced of her guilt, he had her declared a witch on the spot, and her fate was sealed. She was strangled and then burned on Castle Hill, January 28th, 1591. And then her ashes were thrown over the edge of the cliff of Edinburgh Castle. And Agnes wasn't the only one. John Fian, the schoolmaster we mentioned earlier, and he was hauled into prison. And there he faced the boots, another torture device. This time where iron wedges were driven between wooden planks to crush the legs into a pulp. And under this torment, on the day after Christmas no less, he confessed to leading the witches in a pact with Satan, orchestrating the North Berwick Coven's rituals. And he testified their intent was to drown James in the storms using a spell conjured from the devil's playbook. From there, the witch trials just exploded. And exact numbers are a blur in the fog of history. But the outcome was clear. Many, many dozens were burned to death on Castle Hill, strangled by the hangman's rope, then burned at the stake, and the pyres lighting up Edinburgh's night sky throughout 1591. The North Berwick witch trials didn't quench James VI's obsession with the supernatural. They actually stoked it into a roaring blaze. By 1597, 7 years after the fires of Castle Hill had died down, James channeled his fears into one lasting legacy.
That's not what that was. It was a broad kind of his opinion about how demonology works and his opinion about that stuff. Yeah. Channeling his fears is not a fair representation. It's his opinion about all that, how all that works. He studied it broadly and then wrote a book about it. That's not... I'm sorry you don't like James. I get it, but that's not how that went down. I read the book, I know.
In 1597, James wrote his book, Demonology. But it's not what you think. It's less Dungeons and Dragons and more James justifying and explaining the witch trials in Scotland. And again, I remind you, no other monarch in...
No, they're not. That's not what they are. That's just blatant flight. There's one chapter where he talks about witches. He talks about vampires and everything else and terminology. It's an academic work. That's just not true. So,
in the history of the West, dared write such a book. Many of them didn't write books anyway, but what they did, they would write it on politics or the faith or something. But this was written by not only a king, but a very well-educated one. And so the book, Demonology, is cast as a Socratic dialogue between two fictional characters. Philomathus, a curious skeptic or a lover of learning, as his name says, and Epistomen, a fervent believer. Now, this is hardly new in theology or philosophy or anything else. It's not even that new in royal propaganda. But to make this about demons and witches, that is altogether new. You see, James, now 31, steeped in his Protestantism, argued that witches were no myth.
I guess I should extrapolate that. That's a tactic Plato used, I think, in Gregarious, where you'd have two guys arguing back and forth, and Pluto demonstrated the Socratic method through that. So, yeah, it's a takeoff like Greek philosophy. That's why he did it that way. So, yeah. Okay, and for the record, yeah, he doesn't just talk about witches. He talks about vampires. He talks about different types of supernatural entities. So to say that this was a reaction to the Salem witch trials, it wasn't. That's just not a fair coloring of that.
They forged pacts with the devil, committed high treason against God. That's the important point that he argued, which is a crime that is a capital crime, deserving death. And he anchored his book in Exodus 22:18. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Now, anyone who's read the Bible has read that verse. They know what it means. What James is doing here, though, is giving a particular cast or a particular style to what a witch is. The book is about 80 pages, and it unfolds into three little short parts. The first probes magic and necromancy, tracing their dark arts to ancient grimoires located in abandoned castles all throughout Europe. The second unpacks witchcraft and sorcery itself and gives detailed instructions on how the pacts are sealed with Satan's mark and other types of lurid stories. And then
yeah, the vampire stuff isn't... Yeah, there is magic and necromancy, but vampires and revenants, they're called revenants. It's like a whole other category. So yeah, that's not all there.
Yeah.
So...
the third and final part of the book explores the nomenclature and the existence of spirits and specters, from ghostly apparitions to full-on demonic possessions. What's interesting...
Can I point out, this is why you go to first-hand sources. Because if I hadn't read this prior, I wouldn't have known that. And it would have been his coloring of the thing. So I can tell you, because I've read it, and you can get it on Amazon and read it too, that he's wrong about that. That's not correct. It's not a whatever that book is, it's not a reaction to those witch trials. Now, he might have pointed to some of the things that he saw during the witch trials when writing about witches, But that doesn't mean he's justifying what he's doing or this book is in any way of reaction to what happened. He's the king.
Yeah.
Why would he write a reaction paper? He doesn't need to. He's divine. So...
Yeah.
About the book is James doesn't shy away from the lurid. Witches, he claimed, were able to raise storms and sink ships. They could shapeshift, turn into wolves under the moonlight. And they even aided the devil in his, let's just call it, seductions of women. And they even reanimated corpses in order to enact their own carnal desires there. You see, demonology is not a scholar's book. It's a royal rallying cry aimed squarely at silencing doubters. And there were doubters. Famously, Reginald Scot, 1584, wrote The Discovery of Witches, which was printed in London. And this book dismissed witchcraft as trickery and other things designed to distort the mind. In other words, it was more like a magic trick than an orgy of witches and blood. James, though, was incensed, and he actually ordered that Scott's book be burned in 1597 on those same streets in Edinburgh, on High Street, where those previous witches
I said beta.
had burned, now burn the book that raised questions about witchcraft in the first place. So demonology bears James' intellectual and paranoia at the same time in equal measures. It's not a very good book either in the end. Trust me, I've spent a lot of time on James. He actually is very, very good when he's dealing with politics. When he's dealing with witches, he's crazy. I'll just say it. He's lost his mind. And he leans heavily...
He's really not, though, because you can look at his book and compare it
was
to
gonna
other
say, what'd you-
lore.
Do you like the book?
Like it, I finished it quickly, which is rare. It kept my attention.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and it's not anything particularly new. He read that from other stuff. So it's not that he's crazy or being paranoid. He was looking at other firsthand sources, and he made a condensed version of it in like this Greek philosophy format. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. So no, he's not crazy. It's an academic work in the respect that he's compiling a bunch of information. And yeah, he might have added some stuff from his own experiences into that, but that's not all he was doing. Yeah. So this is a very unfair characterization of that book. Although his reaction to Reginald Scot is correct. He did try to burn the book. So he was not happy. It's like, well, he's divine. How dare you challenge me?
Into the tortured confessions of Agnes Sampson and John Fian. Not hard evidence. He's essentially recounting made-up stories drawn out only under torture. In other words, demonology is inciting a fear that doesn't actually exist. James did inspire, though, one major idea. It literally is the source of how we, today, view witches ever since. See, this is the ironic twist. James, by trying to describe witches, actually created out of full cloth the very concept of what you and I consider to be a witch in the first place.
Yep. Yeah.
You see, when James came to the throne of England, now James I in 1603, his book crossed the Tweed and inspired William Shakespeare. I've already mentioned it. With the toil and trouble, cauldron bubbling kind of concept. 1606, it's staged in London's Globe Theatre. And the play has Scottish witches right front and center, brewing potions and giving stormy omens. And this was a theatrical tribute to the king's wrath against the witches. And yet, ever since, the very idea of a witch itself, though it has evolved a little with new little wrinkles and flying brooms and things added after the fact, all of it is really intact here in the 1600s. You see, those images in James' mind as he lay awake at night at Scotland, those fantasy witches, are in part what you and I consider to be witches ever since. The North Berwick trials were just the beginning. Between the 1590s and the mid-18th century, an estimated 4,000 to 6,000 people, and mostly women from the lowlands, were tried for witchcraft in Scotland. This is not some fear of superstition, obviously. There is a lot going on here. But that rate in Scotland is far, far higher than almost any other country in Europe at the time. England, for example, this is a hard way to say it, only, quote unquote, only executed about 1,000 witches over those same centuries. So you see Scotland is outpacing people by a factor of 4 or 6 times. What's interesting is by the end of his life, as he grew older, James himself grew more skeptical, especially after becoming King of England, where witch hunts were less common. Still, though, it was not until 1736 when the Witchcraft Act was finally repealed. But Scotland's witch hunts and James's book on demonology left a scar and set the precedent for centuries.
Okay, I disagree with that somewhat. Number one, James didn't do any more. After that one incident, he was done.
Yeah.
Whatever happened afterwards, I mean, you can't necessarily fault James. But you also can't necessarily fault James for the description of witches, because they were doing it in Denmark before he had his trials. His might have been the most notorious, but
Just
it was a common...
popularized
Yeah, he might have popularized it, but he didn't start it.
Yeah.
So I disagree. And he left out a very major detail, in my opinion. From what I understand, based on having read it, based on memory, because he didn't bring it up, I feel like an impulse to double check it, but based on what I remember of reading the Articles of Scotland that described that, let me pull it up again. So, give me just a second here. Yeah. So this book here that goes through the whole thing is the Articles of Scotland. Yeah. There were multiple people who talked about the same event. Like, there was corroborating evidence. It wasn't just one person who talked about this midnight mass thing with the devil. You know, I showed you the devil making everybody kiss their butt, and then the voodoo thing. Like, there were varying accounts about how that happened.
Yeah.
But they were talking about a specific event. So, yeah, they were tortured. That's true, and that, like, defeats a lot of their testimony, like the validity of their testimony. But they talked about the same things. So something was going on. Doesn't mean what happened was right. It's just they may have actually had the ritual, or they may have got really drunk and pretended to have a ritual. Like, something happened. It's not like the whole thing was just, nonsense. Like, there was some kind of thing that they did. So, torturing is bad. Burning witches is probably not a good thing. But let's try to be accurate. I feel like that, you shouldn't just ignore details. Like, multiple people did say the same thing, and that was factored in. So now the first girl's testimony, I think they were suspect of that, but it's like again, you'd have to go back. This is my memory, and I haven't checked it, haven't verified it. This is my memory after reading it. It was like she was on the periphery of something, and while being tortured, she spouted, she fessed up to some random thing she'd been a part of. Like, if I were to guess, like just pure speculation, I would say that, she's not gathering herbs like a saint. She's probably out partying with her friends, and they went and did something goofy and said, let's kill King James for a ritual one night. Because, it's a pagan culture, and it was like a gag.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a big thing. That would be my guess. So. Yeah. Maybe. It's all speculation. But the moral of the story is read firsthand sources. Anyway. Trevor, you got any final thoughts? You're being quiet again.
Who's being quiet?
You, sir.
Oh.
Well.
Sorry.
That's a hole in the ground.
What?
I said, well, that's a hole in the ground.
That's a hole in the ground.
I'm gonna dig all night long.
But why, though?
To see if I can see your lights in the sky.
Yeah, good luck with that. I hope you see him.
Yeah.
Good luck indeed.
Yeah.
I brought 2 cameras just in case.
Just
Did
in
you bring a shovel?
Yeah, dude, you have to...
You can't dig with a camera.
Listen, they're there every night in the summer. You could
Is it
come to
summer?
my place, stand in my yard exactly where I stand and record them
And-
yourself. They are there from like 10:45 to like 2 sometime in the morning.
And then we'll get in the car and drive and get closer.
I don't know how you could do that. I mean, those roads are so, like, I'm on a hill, so you can see far off. Once you get into the holler, James Holler, you know.
You could set a compass heading.
Yeah, you could set a compass heading. That's what I did. I used Google Maps to figure out where they were, figure out where north was and where they're actually showing up at. But, yeah.
You said they moved from winter, or
They were...
from last year to this year?
Well, it's been over the course of the year. Like, I don't know what they are, but they seem seasonal. Because they start out, this year, they start out in the Northwest. And originally, it was they start out in the Northwest, and they'd go north, and then they'd slowly go to the east as it got closer to morning until you couldn't see them anymore. This year, it's like as the years went on, they've just got closer and closer to the north and stopped showing up in the Northwest. So now they're just in the north. But it's like they're on a loop. It's like I don't want to say an orbit because I wouldn't know what they were orbiting around.
Right.
But it's like they're on some kind of rotation, some kind of route.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know what they are. It's strange,
Witches,
though.
bro.
I don't know.
Probably witches.
Yeah, witches.
Banana.
I'll go build a steak empire and get them ready.
Yeah, don't singe your fluffy collar.
Thumb screws out.
Yeah. What'd you say, Cody?
I said, get your thumb screws out.
Yeah, get your thumb screws out. You know, gotta get that confession first. So
Oh no, I'm not into that stuff.
dark story. Read firsthand sources though and be accurate because they color it a little weird sometimes. All right.
I got your coloring.
Okay. Sweet. You're just saying random things. I don't even know how to respond. Okay. Guys, that's all we have for the night. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
No, sir.
Responding will set you free.
All right.
That's not even. Don't listen to Trevor, people.
Don't. I recommend don't listening to me.
I recommend. Our tens of listeners will be very disappointed.
Yeah, I know, they're waiting with bated breath for your words of wisdom. So.
Wait, I'm not supposed to listen to Trevor?
Or wisdom of words.
There you go. He's our sage in the Dragon Ball Z cap.
Based.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
And don't die.
Don't die.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.